Hello again. Um, Coming at you today, this fine April morning, and today I thought I would talk about something I hold very dear to my heart, and that is Berserk. I wanted to talk about Berserk because it is quite possibly my favorite thing ever. It's amazing, and I've talked a little bit about some other manga series that I'm reading and that I've enjoyed, and I mostly like to talk about video games, but Berserk is my favorite manga. It's kind of what got me back into reading manga a couple of years ago, and I feel like it is just a transcendent piece of fiction across any medium that you can tell fiction. I love movies, I love games, I love all different types of media, but Berserk, and I mean, there is an anime, a couple different animes of Berserk, which we can talk a little bit about, but really, I want to focus on the manga here. This is the true form of this story, and the manga is, again, it's just, I believe, one of the greatest, if not the best, just piece of fiction that I have ever experienced. And going into it, I did not know that that was going to be the case. So let me tell you a little bit about how I discovered it. I believe a friend of mine who doesn't really watch a lot of anime watched the 97 version of Berserk. And uh, he enjoyed it so much, he's like, Luke, you really enjoy anime? Have you seen Berserk? You got to check this out. I think we were playing like some of the Elden Ring, Dark Souls type games at the time. And so I watched the 97 series, which is very good. It covers a portion of what the manga covers. A lot of people consider that kind of like the best part of the manga series. But I did really enjoy the anime. Great music in it, very interesting opening song by the Pen Pals, I think. Great voice acting, and it tells one of the key arcs in Berserk. And I enjoyed it quite a bit. And I was starting to kind of read some other manga. I think, actually, Chainsaw Man actually was one of the manga that got me back into like reading more manga consistently. And I'm a big Fujimoto fan, but I picked up the very first book of Berserk, not the deluxe version, just the standard one. And I read that first book and I was blown away. It starts so strong, and the visuals and art style I really enjoyed. I enjoy it more than like the anime can get into, and I just fell in love with the character, and I wanted to, it starts a little differently than the anime does, and so I realized that the anime maybe took some liberties as far as like how it told the story, and so I was like, okay, I got to start reading the manga, and I liked it so much that I was like, because when researching it, I found out that the series does come in this large um, deluxe version, which I highly recommend. It is such a more enjoyable experience reading Berserk in this larger format. The images are just larger and cleaner. The original smaller books almost have like a yellow tinge to them. It's just, I mean, it's fine. I mean, any way you can read it, you should read it. But the deluxe version is really worth the investment. They can be quite pricey. It took me, I read this series over probably 2 years from just collecting the books because they're about $50 a pop. It's quite expensive, but um, but again, it's the series, and I've read the entire series up until when the author passed away a couple of years ago, and I believe that his son and like the staff have continued on the series. I don't know how much, but I haven't really gotten into any of that aspect of it. To me, the series ends at just I don't know if I won't get into too crazy spoilers or anything, but the series ends unexpectedly when the author passed, but it's also kind of just a perfect moment to stop the series, in my opinion. There's a lot of stuff left unfinished, of course, but it's just the perfect stopping point for me. So let me tell you a little bit about why Berserk is the greatest thing ever. Um, it follows this character, Guts, and I will start off by saying now this series is not going to be for everybody, okay? It is extremely violent and dark. You have to be okay with that kind of subject matter to enjoy this series, you know. And I like rom-coms, I like other stuff too. It doesn't have to be violent, but this series, it just the violence and the despair and the pain of the storytelling is just baked into everything. So you have to be able to be okay with that violence, and you have to be okay with getting hurt, because if you read this story you will be damaged to a certain degree. Guts is this it, wonderful character. The storytelling is interesting because you kind of see him when the series starts in a very he's a very disturbed, dark individual, and then very quickly it kind of rewinds to when he was a youth, and it tells his story uh, growing up in um, joining up with Griffith, and kind of going on from there. And so you kind of see how he turns into such a dark, disturbed individual, and he has good reason to. The world of Berserk, it is a dark fantasy. There's magic, swords, armor. Uh, you know, it's that very classic dark fantasy world, and it is dark. It is so. When you read this story, you feel everything is so dangerous. You know, it is like playing like a Dark Souls game. You go into the next room and you could be wiped out with a sword swing. It is high danger. People die all the time without remorse. It is just brutal, a brutal world, and they do such a great job. It makes Guts's survival and successes feel so much more meaningful and powerful, and his relationships with Casca and all other main characters feels so fragile because the world is so dark, and uh, death could come at any time. Um, so the fantasy world that this exists in is fabulous. The story is very long too. Boy, off the top of my head, I wish I should have looked this up. There's at least 13 of these large books, possibly more. But it's a long-running series. I think it started back in the late 80s or 90s, and it's continued until just a couple of years ago. So it's a very long-running series. If you want to dive into something that you're going to be like invested with, Berserk is fantastic for that. And the story has many different arcs, and the characters change over time. That's something that's so, I feel, is so important in storytelling. You know, if you have these characters and they're just a one note, or they don't change or something like that, it can become boring or stagnant or tropey. But in Berserk, over the course of many books, these characters that you there's characters that are introduced that you hate. They are so either evil or they have no heart, and then over time they change. Their view of the world changes. Their experiences change them. Their interactions with Guts and other characters change them, and you grow to and love these characters. The characters are just well written. The trials that they go through change them. It changes the relationship between all the characters, and it's just beautiful to see how that plays out. There's just many, you know, the characters are one of the strong parts of the series. Obviously, Guts is the main character, but there's great villains. There are love interest. There is political drama, demons, magic. Just, I mean, it has everything that you would want in a dark fantasy fiction. Berserk has it, and in spades. I guess I would also be remorse if I didn't talk here about the artwork in the series is just amazing. I've read a lot of different manga, and different people have different art styles. Um, the Kentaro Miura, I believe is how you say his name. His art is fabulous, and it's interesting to see how it changes over the series. When he first started, it's very gritty and raw, and as over the series, the way that creating manga changed with the introduction of like more digital type of drawing or art, I guess, you can see how his art gets more detailed. I'm sure he probably had maybe more assistants or something to work on in-depth backgrounds, but just however he creates it, and I don't know, but it's just beautiful. His creatures, the characters, artwork at large. He'll have 2-page spans, and there's so many different. He does one thing great that I love in manga is he builds tension. You'll be reading, and again, it's such a dark, suspenseful story, and you know something you're reading, and there's something bad that's going to happen, and he'll build that tension to where it's just like, oh my god, I don't want to turn this page. If I turn this page, I'm going to see something I don't want to see. And so many times you turn the page, and it's even worse. It's even like shocking. Just there's so many times where I would turn the page and the visual is shocking. It is just holy cow, wonderful. And I love that aspect of manga as a medium because I mean, you can build suspense in video games or movies, but manga does it with the page turn. And I don't read a lot of like books. I tend to like reading manga, and I guess maybe books might have that too, but nothing with the way that manga combines the visuals with the storytelling. It's so impactful, that page turn, and you see some image of demons with it's just incredible. Some of the tension that he creates and then delivers on with incredible visuals. Um, what else can I say about Berserk? Again, it's a long running series. It again and there's characters that get introduced um, later in the series. Shirk, I think is how you say her name, is this little like young girl who is a mage that has a very interesting connection with Guts. There's a lot of children characters in this story, which is unexpected for such a dark world. But again, it's that fragility of these young 10-year-old, I don't know how old some of the characters are, but very very young children are part of his main crew, and there is just that fragility of youth and children and this insane violence. They should not be here, but they're subjected to such atrocities and horrible violence and just this world of demons and everything else that's going on in it. And I love that. I think it's so fascinating how some of the best characters are like children, legit children. And Shirk is one of my favorite characters in the whole series. Of course, along with Casca and Guts and many more. There are just fabulous characters, and they have such complicated and interesting relationships with Guts primarily and each other. And again, I kind of wanted to talk about it today, just to kind of describe from a higher level just why it's just so fantastic. I didn't really want to get too much into the details of the story, because this is kind of if you haven't read Berserk or checked it out, like this is number one. This is the great again. It's the one of the greatest pieces of fiction that I've ever experienced. Um, so if you're into manga and you haven't checked out Berserk and you're okay with the violence, nudity, the dark aspect of the story, you gotta check Berserk out. It is just the greatest thing ever. And so I wanted to kind of just make this video today just to shout to the world. I mean, I know that there's a lot of people that share my sentiment. Berserk is a very popular manga, and I'm sure on YouTube you'll find many people that are making very similar videos, and so just add this one to the whole mix. Berserk is fantastic. It has everything in a story: the characters, the world building, the action, the artwork, everything. It has it all in spades, and it will shock you. It will make you feel pain. There is betrayal of the most painful kind, and the characters' relationships are just so, you're just holding on to certain characters for their dear life. And it's that kind of drama and emotion that you will experience if you read this story. So, again, maybe this is a good spot to end it for today. Maybe in the future, I'll go into a more in depth about some of the story and my thoughts about particular arcs and things like that. But today, this is kind of just a overview of the series, and it's going to fall into my number one recommendation if you're looking for a dark fantasy manga stories. Berserk. You cannot beat it. It's number one. So thanks for joining me today. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I'll catch you next time. Take care.